Ukraine is getting a powerful new fighter jet, the Swedish Gripen, while two more Patriot-Systems are on the horizon and will likely arrive this year. But we'll talk about this as well as about anything else that has happened along the front lines and behind them in this situation report about the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have said they hit the Strela factory in Bryansk, and while Strela is also a manpads, this one is a factory to produce electronic components and radar systems, as said in Bryansk, so fairly close to the front line. The governor of the Russian province has said a fire has started, so damage was apparently achieved, even though we do not have any details on that. In regards to the drone strikes, the Russians have done one with 165 drones. Ukrainians managed to intercept 149 of those, so roughly 10% got through. The other strike that I have were 183 drones, 150 of those were intercepted, so a success rate of 18% that the Russians achieved this time. We switch to the developments along the front line, and while I have nothing solid from the Sumy region, actually no change in territory. Yesterday were reports about several Ukrainian attacks into Kursk in the region Glushkovo. According to the reports, the Ukrainians tried to cross over here into Tyotkino, close to here into close to Bezalivka in this direction, and up here towards Novi Put. To which degree those attacks were showing any success whatsoever, unfortunately, I do not have any proof, which would be an indication that they might have failed. But that's all I have from the Sumy region. We switch to Kharkiv, and there is no change along the front line there either. On the eastern front, we have reports that from the Liman direction, the Ukrainians are saying that the Russians are using significant motorcycle attacks in this region, usually 2 men per motorcycle, a driver and a gunner, and the attackers try to break through and reach the lines even if other motorcycles are being hit by FPV drones, so they are bound to break through, and now and then apparently are also successful with this. We switch to, but territorial changes I have not recorded north of the Seversky Donetsk. We switch to the area south of the river, and here in Siversk I have no change in territory. Chasiv Yar, nothing has changed, and when we switch to Toretsk, we have a couple of changes. First of all, we have the Russians seen here south of Delivka. We have that already here on the map. The Russians have advanced into this region. Interestingly enough, the Ukrainians have been shown south in Petrivka. We have that here too. This is a recent position. Now, we had recent fighting here by the Russians, where, among others, they were entering and seemingly occupying a Ukrainian position, which would be an indication that they might have pushed the Ukrainians back. A lot of maps were showing this area thus under Russian control. Now we have visual evidence of the Ukrainians being here in position, indicating that the south of Petrivka is still, or once again, in Ukrainian hands. To the west of it, we have the Russians reaching the town of Nativka. Here. The Russians have advanced further to the north in this direction, and we have visual evidence of this as well. They are now in the southern part of the town, indicating further advances in this direction. We switch to the Pokrovsk region, and here we have the Russians in Nova Poltavka. And this is important because this is on the other side of the main road between Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka, Bakhmut. So the Russians now managed to visually cross it, and according to the geolocations, they actually managed to get into the first houses. To which degree they gained a foothold here is obviously a different question, but they managed to cross it and reach the first houses in their attacks. And directly to the west of it, the Russians managed to enter into Malinivka. So here also, the Russians managed to cross over, and as we can see, the deep state map is already showing a contested area in this region. So we have the attacks being shown here on the map as well, where the Russians have crossed over to the other side of the road. Ukrainians from the region are saying there are less attacks with heavy equipment, but instead attacks with motorcycles, 10 to 100 motorcycles per attack. So 100 motorcycles in one attack would be quite a sizable attack, bigger than company size. If we take the same numbers as from Lyman, that there are 2 men on a motorcycle, this is what we hear from this. But in regards to the changes on the ground, the Russians are mostly stuck, except in this region where they've recently gained some ground. That's it, what I have here from the region. We have an advance in the Novopavlivka area here. Here, the Russians have reached the town of Kotlyarivka. We have them here on the eastern part, and as you can see, the deep state map already is giving the Russians the tree line to the west of it as well. I have not seen visual evidence of this, but obviously we take the deep state's word here as it's a pro-Ukrainian side admitting defeat. This would indicate that the Russians have advanced further in this direction as well. Close to the oblast border, close to Velika Novosilka, we have the Russians in Novosilka, and to the south of it, we have a geolocation here. No, the wrong one. Here, south of Novosilka. This is at this region. The Russian here. The Russians recently have taken roughly this here and this region here, where they recently managed to advance as well. That's it from territorial changes. From the Dnipro front, a little update. There's still fighting being reported almost every day. The activity is mostly on the islands south of Kherson and to the east of it. Both sides try to take control over the islands or prevent the others from doing so, to get basically closer to the other side of the river, to the shores of the river. The islands are thus contested. This is going on the whole time. Now and then one side is taking a better position on the islands itself, but as of now there is no indication that a proper river crossing is to be expected, and the level of fighting, from everything I see, is more or less on a skirmish level. We're talking about usually 4 to 6 men at all fighting here. So overall, while fighting is still continuing there, we cannot expect a significant change here. In the overall situation, we have the Ukrainians now saying that they actually didn't just shoot down one Sukhoi 30, but actually two. And even more interesting, they shot it down with AIM-9 Sidewinder, so the American-delivered short-range missile, instead of the Russian-made R-73, as was initially expected. And we now even have a picture of one of those drones equipped with those Sidewinder missiles. And as said, the Ukrainians said that they actually shot down two. So far, I have not seen a Russian confirmation, while we had one about the Sukhoi 30, about the one that was shot down. We have a confirmation about this, including a video. This time, though, I cannot confirm the second loss. Then we see technical development. This is now the Russians showing a Gatling gun in caliber 12 gauge as a short-range defensive measure. This obviously could have some benefit, while shotguns only have a limited range and are basically only for the final interception. Using a Gatling shotgun would obviously increase the firepower significantly and thus increase the likelihood of shooting down the FPV drone. I personally did a test where with a drone pilot we tried shooting down drones, and indicating that if you can significantly increase the fire volume, obviously this should show some promise. We'll have to see if we see some of those devices popping up in the near future. In the political sphere, we have some informations as well. Russia continues its claims about about a ceasefire that it offered towards the Ukrainians around May 9th. The Ukrainians have denied it, have said that they are not going to join in. And Zelensky said initial reports that Ukraine would agree to that are not true. Zelensky offered 30 days instead, but the Russians clearly only wanted around the parade to allow for that. The interesting part here is also that the way Russia does it is basically they unilaterally declare ceasefires and expect Ukraine to follow suit, and thus obviously also taking the lead and showing both the Ukrainians as well as the world who is the dominating part, who is dictating the terms. And this is something that Ukraine should not and cannot accept all the time. And thus it was to be expected that it would continue. According to reports from Ukraine, China has also asked Ukraine to please not attack Moscow during the parade. At the same time, now there are claims that Putin will actually avoid being there in place and just participate via video. So I would guess the other heads of government are also not going to be at the parade itself, because it would kind of not make sense for Putin to be in a bunker and let the rest be on the stage on at a parade that might be attacked by the Ukrainians. But to that degree, I have no better information. Ukrainians are also saying that Zelensky tried 6 times to get a meeting with Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil, including an invitation to Kiev. Lula hasn't even responded to them, according to the reports, while he agreed to fly to Moscow to participate at the parade, showing obviously how Brazil, under its current government, is standing in regards to the conflict, in regards to the war in Ukraine. Putin also said in an interview that the reconciliation of the Ukrainians and the Russians is inevitable. This basically saying it's determined. And in the past, we need to remember that that Putin said in the past, Ukrainians are basically a part of the Russian people that are led astray by the West to let them to believe that they are their own people, but they are basically Russians. And this is one of the justifications he's using for that war as well. In international support, we have some informations. The French Safran is increasing the production of AASM Hammer in 2025. The number of the bombs that are going to be delivered to Ukraine is unclear as of now, but it's expected that the numbers will go up. Very good news in other regards too. Ukraine is getting an additional Patriot system, this time from Israel. It will still be refurbished and thus only arrive in a couple of months. The other thing is, this is an agreement that Biden made with Israel. So this is not a Trump delivery. It's just a delivery that Trump decided not to stop, as Trump has, apart from that pause for a couple of days when at the same time Kursk was collapsing. Apart from that, Trump has continued the deliveries that Biden already had agreed upon. Even though now in the past few days there were some fresh agreements from the Trump government with Ukraine as well. A second system, according to the New York Times, a second system is going to be sent as well. This would be from either Germany or Greece, or maybe in combination of both. So in total, this would mean that Ukraine would have 10 systems. Currently, it obviously then has 8. 6 of those are in operation. 2 of them are currently being refurbished, but this should give Ukraine more or less coverage when it comes to its need. The other question will obviously be interceptors, but this is very good news for Ukraine. This should allow it to protect its most important targets with Patriot systems. Zelensky also said that Ukrainian pilots have started training in the Czech Republic for the Gripen. Now, initially it was reported that they will be training on the Gripen. That seems to be extremely unlikely, as the Czech Republic has a very limited amount of Gripen. It's very likely that this was some translation mistake. It seems more likely that these pilots are being trained on the L-39. This is a Czech training plane, Czech built actually, and they will likely be trained there in their requirements, and prepared for the Gripen before they switch to the plane itself. Gripen itself, Ukraine will likely receive 14 of those from Sweden. Sweden currently has 74 C and D variants, while 60 version E, that's a much more modern version, are ordered. In December 2024, Sweden signed an agreement to modernize 60 C and D versions to be able to carry more modern weapons, etc. And if we look at the numbers, 74 they currently have and 60 are being modernized. That leaves exactly 14, and those are the 14s that it's been talked about that are going to go to Ukraine. It's very likely, while that is a fantastic plane, it's very unlikely that there will be additional ones that are coming pretty soon. Sweden is likely not going to be able or willing to hand over additional ones in the near future. And if we look at the other users, they either aren't helping Ukraine at all, or they have too few that it's likely that they will hand over some, especially as none of them are in the process of being decommissioned. Some of them are actually just ordering them now, so that there will be additional Gripens for Ukraine seems highly unlikely. The Gripen itself is a very robust plane that is made to be easily used from auxiliary airfields like roads. The maintenance is, at least some part of the maintenance can be done with a limited training under the guidance of a better trained mechanic. This is being marketed. So from my understanding, the bigger maintenance still has to be done in special hangars and with special equipment. But to keep the plane in the fight for a while is fairly easy and fairly quite possible from the field itself without having to send them to special places, to special installations. The weaponry it can carry is it's especially capable in air-to-air role. Obviously, it can carry guided bombs as well, but it carries American Sidewinder and MRAM air-to-air missiles, but it can also carry the European Iris-T short-range missile and Meteor, the middle to long-range missile that is being considered to be one of the most potent missiles at all, especially as it has a ramjet engine and thus can continue generating energy, which allows it to be able to much better follow enemy planes and thus increase the effective range inside of the nominal range where it is highly dangerous to planes, unlike other air-to-air missiles that usually only burn for a couple of seconds, and then the rest of it has to be done with the engine that was initially created. Unlike those, the Meteor has its own engine that keeps burning while the Meteor is following its target. This should make it highly dangerous to the Russians, with a range of up to 200 kilometers. So for striking gliding bomb bombers, this should be the potent weapon. We'll have to see how the Ukrainians will use those. A realistic time frame for the pilots, for the planes to be ready, I can only guess. Now, I do not have the data when the training started, but if it's currently happening, we should not expect them before the end of the year to enter the fight, especially not in bigger numbers. So probably next year, early to mid 2026 is when the Gripen will likely enter the battlefield. This is the third Western fighter jet that is getting to be used by the Ukrainian Air Force after the F-16 and the Mirage 2000. This is obviously far from ideal, that the Ukrainians have to use different systems, thus different maintenance, different supply routes, etc. But it's probably one of the most potent ones of the ones that are available. It should be the most potent one. And the interesting part is here, not only is it likely more potent, at least more potent than the Mirage 2000, and probably more, depends on the exact setup of radar, etc., than the F-16s that were delivered, unlike the other ones. The Gripen is a plane where it's likely that Ukraine can receive new production ones in a mid-future. Now, it's unlikely that Ukraine will receive 2026 or 7 new planes, but this is a plane which is currently in production and has has orders for the next probably 10 years plus. The F-16 is also still being produced, but it's a much older plane, whereas the Gripen is a more modern one, and especially in the E and F version, very potent plane that is in serial production inside of Europe, inside a country that is committed to supporting Ukraine. So this is a likely source for additional fighter planes in the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, this is a more realistic time frame and one that doesn't solve urgent needs right now, but at least it is a time frame that Ukraine can plan with to a certain degree. But that was it from me for today, for today's situation report. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment if you have something to add. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. But that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.